Rotary Australia World Community Service Limited, Raucks, is a limited company formed to support Australian Rotarians and Rotary clubs in assisting disadvantaged communities and individuals with humanitarian aid projects. It is not an emergency response organisation, but rather looks to engage in sustainable, developmental or relief projects. A number of Sydney-based Rotary clubs have made donations to an NGO called Green TL, which is run by Judy Charnaud and a local team. Judy, a Rotarian with the E-Club of Sydney, has lived in Oecusse, an enclave in East Timor, for many months every year since 2001. Whenever Judy gets back to Sydney, she has visited and updated many of the Rotary clubs on the work that Green TL has undertaken. To further assess how Rotary can help and provide further meaningful aid to the people of Oecusse, a group of 5 Rotarians travelled there in July 2016. This outlines what they saw and did. Flying into Oecusse, the rugged mountainous landscape with very thin coastal strip became very apparent. Oecusse was the landing place of the Portuguese just over 500 years ago. It has an area of 814 square kilometres, that's about 2/3 the size of metropolitan Sydney, and divided into 4 sub-districts. The main one, Pantai Macassar, is commonly referred to as Oecusse Town. The whole of Oecusse has a population of just over 65,500 people. However, current population estimates say that it will be double that by the year 2025. When we landed at Oecusse Airport, the extent of the numerous projects being undertaken by the Special Zones of Economic Development, or ZEEMs in the local language, led by the first elected Prime Minister, Dr. Mauri Al-Khaziri, was immediately apparent. This huge undertaking and massive investment and tremendous self-promotion with signage includes new runways for larger jets, 4-lane highways with large stormwater drainage stretching well beyond city limits, power stations and transmission throughout the region, sporting facilities and golf courses, irrigation and dam projects, and a duty-free port and ocean resorts. Even the $7 million plane is owned by ZEEMs, not leased. The whole economic zone covers a large area of Pantai Macassar. Much debate is occurring on whether the work ZEEMs is performing and planning is correct. The huge amount of expenditure, the level of development, and whether it is appropriate is under much attack.
Is there an overall sort of coordinated, not talking about this money guy that...
There is an overall plan. They did eventually draw up a plan. The plan seems to change every 5 minutes.
Our first stop was to Oecusse Hospital. It was built with the assistance of AusAid money and was a fairly modern facility. We met the hospital administrator and we got shown around by his assistant. The hospital appeared well equipped. However, pathology testing facilities did not appear fully utilised. Diagnosis with diseases such as TB is extremely important here because the highest rate of occurrence in Southeast Asia is in East Timor. A key challenge is to encourage early visits during sickness and illness because many older people associate hospitals with death due to their extremely poor health and delaying seeking attention. Young mothers are seen to be the best way of overcoming this. Next, we visited the Pradet Women's Refuge, where we met the manager Meta Bando, who is shown in the centre of the picture, and the rest of her staff. We were very moved when they told us about the work they did dealing with domestic violence, probably more extreme than in Sydney, although it has the same issues. Epping Rotary made a significant cash donation towards their work, and we also gave them a donation for the use of their car and driver during the week we were there. Meta, who is a lawyer, achieves the highest conviction rates for domestic violence in East Timor, which encourages more women and their families to come forward and make their case known. Her next step, the way she sees it, is to improve her formal training in counselling. We were guests in a local family's home who were Judy's former neighbours. We then were treated with a demonstration of the local weaving. We each bought a scarf, just for about $25 each, and that was the equivalent to 2 months' wages for the husband.
We've come to see Stella after her
Like this.
It looks easy when you do it.
Yes.
It's not.
These they use, see how she's picked up different threads? So when she puts the black through, so I guess this is where the next bird's coming along. It's amazing, isn't it?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I get claustrophobia.
You're going to be dinner one day.
Here, it's with this one here.
Yeah.
It's the palm are used for batching.
Yes.
And the sticks or the stems are used for fencing like this.
Electricity is now available to all villages and establishments in Oecusse thanks to Zeems. Currently it is free and unmetered, but of course that will change. Our visit to Pune village was one of the highlights of the trip. As the crow flies, it is in the highlands about 20 to 25 kilometres southwest of Oecusse town. We travelled over very rough riverbeds and mountain roads to reach it.
They're making a huge effort for infrastructure, aren't they?
My God, yeah.
With all those telecommunication things we've seen and roads.
This area is generally impassable during the wet season, and this dam and various other forms of infrastructure should address this, making it far more accessible. Upon arrival at Pune, we were given a beautiful musical welcome and presented with traditional weaving Thai cloths, which is part of the nation's cultural heritage and used for ceremonial adornment. We met a truly impressive group of local dignitaries and discussed their plans to repair or replace an approximately 2 kilometre run of pipe from a fresh spring in the hills to the village. They are fully prepared to provide any labour involved in the project, but request assistance with the supply and design.
Oh, it's beautiful.
We also met the 2 young leaders of Tracel, Augustino Bahan and his charming fiancée, Regina. They teach English, computing and music and were co-sponsors of the Green Games, the District Soccer Championship. Game preparations were in great hands. Bruce was going to blow up the soccer balls.
You've got oval assistants here.
Hello.
Smile.
Yay, very good. He's happier now with rugby. Rugby ball.
Senior student Roberto gave us a beautiful rendition of his favourite song.
Until you come and see someone new.
Next, a trip over the road to the main school, where we met the principal and staff and discussed the possibility of assistance with books, computers and data projectors.
Let the games begin.
Yeah.
Concerned about the lack of future prospects for young people, the high rate of unemployment and their own perceived lack of leadership skills, Lewis and Judy decided to organise a sporting competition to give young people something positive to do, learn teamwork, leadership, think critically, and to feel better about themselves and improve their sporting and teamwork skills. The first Youth in Action Green Games were played in 2008, and it has become a much anticipated annual event with now over 1,000 participants and well over 1,000 spectators to each of the games. And this year it was relocated to Pune.
Senor John Tony.
One of the things which worried both the Rotarians and Judy, but nobody else, was the state of the soccer field. The gravel, dust, trenches, large boulders, an overlapping volleyball court with a cement block supporting the metal poles were of concern. When it was said that Judy and the team would take no responsibility for broken bones or gravel rash, all of the players simply laughed. They breed them tough in Oecusse. Several of the younger players also played in bare feet or thongs. Later, Judy told us at the end of the games there were no human problems, but 6 soccer balls were punctured and destroyed during the games.
Where's the sideline? Okay, I was running through those stones.
We were thoroughly impressed by the enthusiasm and sportsmanship exhibited during the games. The organisation which went into the games was outstanding and made for their success. Congratulations for Lewis and his skill in looking at both the overall picture and the smallest detail, which ensured that everything fell precisely into place. High on our agenda is to send to Pune some used soccer boots and some new socks. Our long journey home meant we could only see one match. However, we all agreed that the junior teams, that's 8 to 12 years, they could give any team in Sydney a run for their money. The next day, we were off to Catet to see Father Richard's orphanage, and en route we passed the Tono River again and had another look at the dam project. An incredibly rough ride across poorly made roads, we finally reach Catet Orphanage. Topahonis is a privately funded NGO founded in 1993 by Father Richard Dashbach, a US priest now in his late 70s with dual Indonesian citizenship who has lived and worked with the people of East Timor for over 40 years. Father Richard explained that they are not necessarily orphans in the traditional sense. It's not really an orphanage, it's a safe house. In an orphanage, children's parents are completely out of the picture. With some of the kids here, their parents have died, but in most cases their mothers are widowed and are remarried, and they couldn't take the kids because the new husband considers them a burden. In these situations, the children are passed on to the extended family, though not as equals. They get treated like workhorses, like second-class citizens. They won't starve, but they have very limited opportunities in life. So they accommodate them, provide them with food, shelter, education and medical care. Father Richard said, often they go to visit their mothers. They can leave at any time they want and they can come back any time. But the decision must be theirs. They must want to stay. The church, which was built with donations, serves both the orphanage and the local community. The children's attendance to Sunday services is entirely voluntary. After the East Timorese overwhelmingly voted to break away from Indonesia in 1999, the Indonesian army became enraged. Scores of its soldiers had died at the hands of East Timorese independence fighters during its brutal 24-year occupation and, on realising all of its efforts had come to naught, implemented a scorched earth policy. 80% of East Timor's infrastructure was destroyed and hundreds were slaughtered. However, the army did not do the dirty work itself. Wary of international attention, it armed and paid pro-integration militia to rape, pillage and plunder on its behalf. Little Oecusse suffered the brunt of it, as told by Father Richard.
We had roll call every morning. The guy that was shot before he died with a bullet in his brain, he was laid out here after the first attack.
Here we defended our freedom with our blood.
All the kids were sleeping all over the place because their sleeping quarters were taken over by refugees. And there were two attacks. The first attack, the dawn went out. We all went out to the front line, way over there. And on the other side, we were on this side. That lady up there, she was baking bread. They said, "We're getting attacked, we're being attacked." So I'm going to finish my bread. And they're running down at Mark's place. She was here too with her. And as they ran out, he says, "They caught 2 spies. We had them in jail." He said, "What are you going to do when the spies in the jail?" So they said, "We'll take care of them." She said, "Good." So they took him down there. Monica didn't think about it. Later on, before we came back from the attack, she was walking down the road, and she says, and they came up holding 2 heads like this. They were looking at me, and the ears were wiggling. And she laughed and laughed. You know what that means? It's when you're under stress, you laugh. That takes off the stress.
Yes.
Doctors in heavy operations sometimes do that joking. And so they always do that. If your head stays on, they can haunt you. So you either take off the head and put it in some place far away, or you burn the corpse. Because when you're afraid you kill somebody, no matter what you kill him for, you can haunt you.
Our trip to Oecusse, which is west of Pankei Makassar, allowed us to see the Tono River Bridge firsthand.
Since? Japanese? Japanese? Indonesia? Yeah.
Is it 2 or 4 lanes?
Unfortunately, these large seam projects employ little local contractors or labour, and few skills are being learnt by the East Timorese.
Pedro, the chief of the village.
He felt most welcome at Oecusse because Judy, Lewis and the team had done so much work over the years with various projects. It was extremely gratifying to hear of the great improvement in the health throughout the village, especially with children, due to the biosand filters and the resulting availability of clean water.
Once every 10 years or so.
Wow.
Once it starts to come out here very slowly, then that means that the schmuck is built up and it's too thick, so you just scrape that up and throw it away.
So who did the original design?
So the design has been around for thousands of years, this biosand stuff. And I did a lot of reading on it, and I found a guy in America, some students had designed these smaller ones, because I put in a bigger one up in Oecusse one time with Wisdom Council. It really wasn't very successful because it was really big and people couldn't be bothered going to it.
Oecusse is the jewel in the crown of the sustainable village concept that Judy, Lewis and the team have made possible. Having built wells around the village and encouraged the wide use of biosand filters to render the water safe to drink, the availability of electricity has added a new dimension to everything. For a few $100s to buy a pump and piping and install, voila, water from a tap. This adds a whole new dimension to the village with agriculture and sustainable vegetable gardens and growing seeds as part of the deal.
And here they're actually planting out seeds in little rows, and then once they start them, they replant them.
Even a cleverly designed seedling propagation tray It is designed to prevent backache by being built at waist height.
Here's the petrol station, complete with first filter.
The area around Oecusse is one of the major rice growing districts, and with concepts such as this, yield should increase. Liffey Memorial is located in the area where the Portuguese first landed in 1550.
100 years of Portuguese influence in East Timor.
Although partially completed, there is a large sculpture that inappropriately depicts the landing of a dominating Portuguese party and the subservient acceptance by the local East Timorese.
First thing I would do is put some jelly dot underneath that.
Yeah.
Even more disturbing was the entirely poor quality work and lack of professional finish throughout the area. These stands were never ready and can never be used due to totally corrupt, unsafe work and materials. We then went back to the town and had a look at some of the sporting facilities around the area.
All of the sporting facilities are all too close together and too close to the edge, and there's no room for spectators.
Many of the contractors, especially local tradesmen, have yet to be paid, as is the case with this fence. Throughout Oecusse, Zeems has frequently exhibited poor disregard for the community, lack of accountability and answerability, and performed work that is inappropriate or goes unchallenged. The following day, our spirits needed lifting. What better place to visit than Father Richard's Topohonis Refuge at Mahata? We were showed around by Veronica. Veronica and her husband Mark own the guest house Oecusse Amsat, which is where we stayed and only a short walk away. Veronica was living at Cadet Refuge in 1999 during the militia attacks prior to the handover at independence.
Spinach.
Ah, chives.
Listen, what?
Spinach. This we call this chives. Chives.
Chives. Chives. And this one. This is local onion.
Local onion. Yeah. Yeah. Like
It's cabbage.
cabbage.
Hey, Cap.
You sell? Do you sell all these? Make money?
People buy. They want to learn tourism.
This is an open well through. So this is just a water table here. The water, if you can see it's clear, it looks clean. It dries coliforms, you go off the scale.
We also met some young people who go to high schools in Oecusse. Their soccer field looked far more favourable than that at Pune. Together with the pigs, the highlight of animal husbandry in Oecusse. The border post at Sakato is only 10 kilometres from Pantai Makassar. We walked around and looked at this fairly new facility and naturally stayed on the Oecusse side. The whole 10 kilometres from Oecusse town to the border has a 4-lane highway, which, if the sceptics are to be believed, is to carry the heavy machinery to all the Zeems projects. On the way back, we saw the power station, which even the sceptics couldn't say wasn't a benefit to Oecusse. This was our final day in Oecusse. Reflecting on our visit, we had gained a much better knowledge of the country and its situation, difficulties and struggles, thanks to meeting and travelling with people with many years of experience in assisting Timor Leste improve and develop. Our trip had seen some amazing things. A sustainable village project that focuses on clean water and biosand filters that is now extended into growing crops and related activities. The recognition that locals really do know what is required and frequently outsiders don't. They appreciate taking part in the planning as well as the execution. A reliable water supply, which is critical wherever we visited. An ever-increasing demand for better quality education, knowledge from people in what were once remote villages. And teachers who want to make it happen. A compassion and dedication of people running shelters, orphanages and safe houses. The multiple benefits of the Green Games and how they bring communities together in so many ways. The importance of having people on the ground being the vital key factor for success in any international project, especially involving governmental areas and sensitivities. While the success of Judy and Lewis's efforts are most encouraging under what can only be described as very difficult circumstances, more can be done and needs to be done. The key question is, how can Rotary help?